With the amazing news that Arc System Works is making a new tag fighting game around the Marvel IP that is going to be releasing next year, there is only one natural way ahead that we need to follow, and that is discussing which Marvel characters deserve and need to have a spot in the roster of MARVEL Tōkon Fighting Souls. And doing this, of course, is going to be a huge challenge because there are so many Marvel characters and comics that you probably need to take into account when you build the roster of a fighting game, and also there are so many Marvel characters that got super famous only because of the MCU and the movies. So it is super hard to pick the perfect top 10 characters. I'm gonna try to do my best, but in any case that I don't mention a character that you want, let me know in the comments which is that Marvel character that you need in this game. And before we start, I'm gonna set some rules so that we basically maximize the possibility of making the best top 10 list. The first rule is that even though there's a ton of characters from the Marvel vs. Capcom series that probably need to return in this new Marvel tag fighting game made by ArcSys, I'm gonna try to avoid them in the list, because I actually want to pick 10 characters from Marvel Comics that maybe have never been in a fighting game, because I feel like it is most exciting to talk about the options that we have never played before than just mention, Wolverine, Cyclops, Magneto, and maybe all the Marvel characters that are probably going to be in the game and are kind of a given, because if they don't come back, we're gonna make a huge riot. So I'm gonna try to avoid talking about returning characters and mostly talk about new options that have never been in any fighting game. And the other rule is that I'm actually gonna try to be realistic. Even though there's a ton of Marvel characters that I would like to see in a game like this, I know that some are not gonna make the cut. So I'm gonna choose characters that are fan favorites, but that also make a ton of sense for the game. And you get that mix of like maybe a character that you like that is also realistic and it's probably going to make the roster in the real game. The first group of characters that we have to talk about, it would be insane to not mention them, and I'm going to even say that it is a certainty that they are going to be in the game, and it is the Fantastic Four. They are of course getting a movie this year. We are also supposed to see Galactus and Silver Surfer in their movie, so maybe they could also be in the game. And of course the Fantastic Four are gonna be, in the table for basically the main heroes of the next Avengers movie, which should be released at the end of the year, in which this game is going to be released. So we are probably gonna get at least a couple of members from the Fantastic Four in the base roster of the game. I would even argue that we are probably going to see the full team in the base roster. And I'm not angry at that at all, because the Fantastic Four have never been on a Marvel vs. Capcom game, and they are super iconic and famous Marvel heroes. They would probably have a very also fun gameplay design, so I'm super happy, with this certainty, because I'm certain that they are going to be in the base roster of the game. It would be absolutely crazy if we don't see at least Mr. Fantastic on the base roster of this Marvel game by ArcSys. For the sake of the video though, the Fantastic Four are only going to be considered as one slot in the top 10 list. Now we move into two other slots, which I would like to call basically the street level heroes. And these two characters for me have always been incredibly well fitting for a fighting game, and they should be at the top of the priority list to put in a roster for a game like this, but for some reason they have never been on a Marvel vs. Capcom game before, and I hope that they are present in this ArcSys game, and those are Blade and Daredevil. I really feel like both Blade and Daredevil are literally perfect for a fighting game. You don't even need to be creative with their moveset, you can literally just copy what they do in the comics and maybe other games, and you just have so many sources to basically create a fighting game character that is perfect when it comes to Blade and Daredevil. So they need to be in the game. I really don't see a world in which Daredevil and Blade are not in this game. I could see them as DLC though, but for me, they should be in the top of the priority list for the top 10, characters of Marvel that need to be in the base roster. And then we move into the section of Marvel characters that is arguably what made Marvel vs. Capcom big and famous, and is the X-Men. And there is still a group of X-Men that I do not understand how the hell they were never on an NBC roster. It is absolutely insane for me that they have never been on a fighting game, and they need to be on this one, especially for the connection that they have with the other X-Men that have already been in Marvel fighting games, and that they are also probably gonna come back in this game. And the X-Men are gonna take 3 spots on my top 10 list of characters that need to be in this game, and are gonna be Nightcrawler, Professor X, and Beast. Especially Professor X needs to be in this game, dude. It is pretty crazy that Magneto, being such a relevant character for NBC as a franchise, and how it kind of represents, the X-Men side with Wolverine, Storm, and Cyclops in the history of NBC. And we're getting a new Marvel game, and Professor X has never been on an NBC So why the hell would he not be in this game, taking into account that now we don't need slots for Capcom characters, you know? We can use 32 base roster spots for only Marvel picks, and I think that Professor X deserves to be in the game. With how important Magneto is for the franchise, how the hell is Professor X, the arch-nemesis of Magneto, not in the game? Like, it would be crazy. And then of course Nightcrawler and Beast, I think that they're just staples of, you know, the X-Men as a brand, so it would be pretty weird to play a new Marvel fighting game that doesn't need slots for another franchise and not have those couple of X-Men that are so classic. And also they would probably be very fun to play in terms of like gameplay design. Playing both Nightcrawler and Beast and Professor X, of course, would be incredibly fun. So if we don't get those 3 X-Men, for me it would be really weird, and I think that they really deserve to be in the top of the priority list to be in the base roster of this game. Another couple of picks that I have on my top 10 revolve around what you can argue is basically the most famous superhero in Marvel Comics, and that is Spider-Man. Spider-Man has been in every single MVC game, if I remember correctly, but do you know what we have never gotten? Spider-Man villains outside of Venom. So what the hell is going on that we are not getting Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus in this game? It needs to happen. They are 2 of the most famous Marvel villains, they are connected to the most famous Marvel superhero, and they have never been on Marvel vs. Capcom. So ArcSys needs to make it happen, and we need to see Green Goblin and Doc Ock in this game as playable characters, and I would argue that they are also on the top of the priority list to be in the base roster. They would probably be immensely fun to play, incredibly unique in terms of gameplay, and they are so famous that why would you not put them in the game now that you have more slots for Marvel characters? The only problems that I see with these characters, especially with Green Goblin, is the fact that he would need to be flying like a lot of the time in fights, and maybe that would be hard to design in terms of gameplay. He could also be on the floor, like he doesn't need to be flying 24/7, but it is something that basically makes the character unique in the comics. And that is also, you know, translated to also Human Torch. You could make the same argument for the Human Torch. So it will be hard, but I'm confident that they can still make an amazing gameplay design with those characters, even though they would need to be, you know, constantly flying. And the other big argument that you can do against, you know, characters like Green Goblin and Doc Ock is that maybe you need more MCU characters, you know? Maybe someone would say, hey, take Green Goblin and Doc Ock out, put them as a DLC, and put, like, you know, Scarlet Witch and Vision in the base roster, which is something that I would not do, and that's why you're not seeing Wanda and Vision, for example, in my list. But you can for sure make that argument in terms of like marketing and even popularity, because there's a lot of characters from the MCU that got really big. So that's the only thing that you can maybe, you know, argue against Doc Ock and Green Goblin, but this is my list, so these 2 are kind of like the picks that I'm actually biased, so I need them in the game. I really want those 2 villains in the base roster. And the last 2 spots in my top 10 are going to be my MCU picks, you know, characters that got super big because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they deserve to be in the base roster of the game and even should be prioritized as characters for the game. And they are the Winter Soldier or Bucky Barnes and Black Panther. Bucky, I feel like you need to have it in the game. He is one of the most famous characters thanks to the MCU. You know, one of those characters you can argue before was a little obscure and now is at the level of Captain America, Iron Man, you know, that level of popularity. And then you have Black Panther, which is the only returning character actually in this list because he was only on MBCI and he was even a DLC, if I'm not mistaken. So I truly believe that this couple of characters are perfect for the game in terms of gameplay design, how famous they are, how they are connected to the movies, like everything is there. So Bucky and Black Panther to me are the couple of picks that end with our top 10. Let me know in the comments again which Marvel characters you want to see in this game that maybe I didn't mention. To me, these are the most relevant top 10 characters that probably need to make it to the final roster of this game and arguably in the base roster. And let me know if you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, and have an amazing day. Get ready for this new Marvel game.